Hello everyone, welcome to the Geoecologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on various topics of geography, environment and research methodology on my channel, The Geoecologist. So if you are new to this channel, do consider subscribing our channel, but before that, do check the playlists for the prior videos. Now in today's session on regional geography, we are going to learn about the various types and classifications of regional planning. But before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well. So now let's discuss about the various types of regional planning. So in the earlier lecture also we have talked about that what is regional planning. It is basically a science of efficient placement of infrastructure, zonation for sustainable growth and development of a particular region. Also, if you look into a definition given by Friedman, so you observe planning is primarily a way of thinking and it's about social and economic problems. So through regional planning, what do we solve? Social and economic problems, the problems of infrastructure, the problems of growth, the problems of overall sustainable development in our society, right? So what you observe, this planning process involves several steps. Setting of objectives, developing premises, identifying the alternative solutions, then evaluating, selecting an alternative, then we have implementation of the plan, and then follow-up of the action and further continuation. So these things are intertwined or interrelated with each other. So planning and region together forms regional planning, and this is an interdisciplinary subject. Now let's understand that what are various types of regional planning. So the general classification of regional planning, you can see this is various types like physical planning, allocative planning, economic planning, indicative planning, imperative planning and innovative planning. So what are these various kinds of planning? Let's understand. So first of all, the physical regional planning. What is this? The word itself is physical. It's talking about physical plan, land use, infrastructure building, new town and settlement structure planning. So these are certain things which are physical in nature, right? So planning of a new township by urban development agency can be considered as an example. And what happens under this? The goal of this physical planning is to construct a specific area or location based on idea of social and economic conditions, growth and development. Right? So this is a physicality in a physical space. Now, the next important type of planning is economic regional planning. As the word says, the prime objective is economic plan here. So this type of planning focuses on regions' overall economic structure, economic growth and development activities. And remember, it is concerned with creation, distribution and consumption of material and non-material resources. So in resource geography, we understand natural resource management, and that is integrative part of this particular planning. So for example, resource planning by state economic unit, that is planning units, that is what we do. And the third type of planning is allocative planning. The word itself is allocation. Now, why we use this allocation? Because remember, growth is not uniform because resources distribution are non-uniform. So distribution of resources is highly uneven, and for this reason what we need to develop is the idea of allocation of resources to different portions of the region so that overall development can take place, right? So as a result, resource allocation determines the production, distribution and consumption of resources in a given quantity in a given region. This kind of planning is allocative planning, right? So what we allocate in what region? So new economic plan, that is new economic policy, and development of public housing, infrastructure and several others, these are part of allocative planning. So it is allocated in a given timeline that particular portions, particular area of that region has to be developed in particular aspect in terms of allocation of resources. Right? Then what we observe is the fourth and very important planning in today's world, which is innovative planning. And remember, innovations based on science and technology, innovations based on these social and economic concepts. Now these are in vogue, and this has grown in the recent last decade in multifolds. So for example, if you see here, the development of light rail or light rail transit LRT system, some places you will hear BRT system, bus rapid transit corridor systems. Now these kind of systems are innovative plans. for integration of people, for smooth transfer of people, transportation. So we observe this Kuala Lumpur example. This is what? This aims at renewal of these ideas through integration of technology, and also it allows a change and leads to this capacity building and assessing the capacity and proficiency and attempting to develop or improve the overall framework of a region. So this kind of planning is very important in today's world where people are growing, right? Population growth is happening while resources are not. So what are we doing? There is an imbalance, and we try to create balance by innovations because the agricultural lands are getting lesser, they are getting degraded. So what do? A lot of innovations. So on the basis of innovations, when a planning is done, it is called innovative regional planning. Then what we observe is indicative planning. The word itself is saying indications. Now, remember, this planning was most likely initiated in France during World War II, and after that, after restructuring. So new development plans, right? So Charles de Gaulle, if you remember, this person coined this term indicative regional planning in 1946. And in this, what happens? The planner is the person who decides and provides incentives to people in order to do what? In order to improve their lives, and this is regarded as indicative planning. Now remember, this is an advisory kind of planning where advisories are issued on the basis of indications of underdevelopment, and it involves the formulation of general guidelines to be obeyed by the citizens. So this aims to introduce basic economic activities and establish modern facilities through the states and economically improve the areas which are underdeveloped portions. So this is called indicative regional planning. And then further, what we have is imperative regional planning. The word itself is, it's imperative, it's mandatory, it's to be followed as by the rules of the authority. So this is used in specification with a definite plan. Now there could not be a change after the plan is to be implemented. It means what? Once the plan is developed, it must be implemented, right? So for example, Town and Country Planning Act 1974 of Malaysia, and in India as well, we have Town and Country Planning Body which takes care of these kind of plans. And also remember, many urban plans, town plans and master plans are also developed in this particular manner in terms of the urbanization, urban expansion and regional development. So this is where you observe imperative regional plan, where plans are made and fixed and they are to be obeyed in the way they are made. So that's imperative for people to follow. So it's called imperative regional planning. Now what we observe is other types of regional planning. So what are these other types? Some of them is based on time. So it's temporal regional planning. And there are two types, as you know. One is short-term regional planning and one is long-term regional planning. The word itself tells us that in short term we have shorter goals to attain. So it may be used in terms of increasing production, employment opportunities, and in particular case in a particular given time frame. But what about long-term planning? Long-term planning is also called futuristic planning that involves restructuring of institutions, structural changes, and the necessary plans for a long-term future. For example, if we want to become a carbon neutral economy, then right now, since today, we need to develop an attitude of not polluting the environment, not throwing the garbage outside the dustbins. For this, what we need is a urban waste disposal management and rural waste disposal management plans. So these are long-term plans. It will not happen in one day. But if initiative is taken right now, maybe 40 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line, we'll be achieving a state which will be carbon neutral. So that kind of plan is long-term plan. For example, if you observe this diagram, look at this particular road and we observe long-term goals that take 1 year or more to achieve. Short-term goals are just in few months achieved, and smart goals are to be achieved by technology usage in a very quick time. And also there are some mid-term goals like about half-yearly goals. So in that way we can understand this is a temporal approach of regional plan. Then what we have is types of regional planning based on spatial. So one was temporal, this is spatial, and spatial has the first component of sectors. If you remember the models and theories where sectoral model of urban growth was discussed. So this is according to that. So sectoral plan. So we plan for different sectors of our economy and society: agriculture, industry, transportation, power, and other individual then remember this kind of planning is called sector-wise planning. So for each sector, we have a specific plan. And then what we have is something called spatial planning. As the word itself is spatial, remember the word spatial is related to a particular location. So we have town planning, country planning, area planning, local planning. This kind of planning is called the spatial planning, where a particular space is supposed to be reorganized, and reorganization of space would give us the efficient manner of administration, economy, social development. All these kind of things would be linked together. So this is called spatial planning. Apart from this, what we have is another type of regional plan that is based on the perspectives. Remember, we have already learnt about perspectives in human geography, where different approaches, different paradigms are observed. So one of the approaches, normative planning. The word itself is norm, nomothetic. So norm is when a rule is made. So normative planning is a directive planning, right? And it is basically when planner is in search for best possible results related to established goals. So in this kind of plan, we have to have a norm, established goal, and this leads to the emphasis on social and institutional dimensions of planning. So this is very important in terms of normative planning, and it has a lot of points to be understood here, like 5 groups of problems which is addressed by this. So procedure for defining goals and objectives, then we have phasing of a plan, then linking and integrating of these functions and sectors in the elements of the plan, then we have linking and integrating of territorial plans, determining the contribution that specialists can make. So all these things are part of this integral normative planning, because it has to be through rules, through established goals. And how do we reach those goals? Through these processes, right? Then what we have is the physical planning as an example of this normative planning. So normative approach can be applied in physical planning and town planning, where expert, analysts, surveyor, model makers, operators, they work together. And then they frame a goal to be set that this plan has to be implemented in a particular time, in a particular space, in a particular way. Right? Then what we have is the second part of this planning, that is systems approach in planning. Remember, systems approach we have learnt in the previous lessons also in perspectives in human geography. So when we say something as systems, it means it needs to be defined in terms of its components. So individual components joining together, linking together makes a system. So if this kind of approach is used in regional plan, it is called systematic regional plan. So what are these various components making the system? The values, goals, roles, factors, organizations, clients, rules, norms. These are the individual components which come together to make a system. So this is called systematic planning or systems approach in planning, where participants of the plan are valued. Now what you observe, the various elements of this particular plan are these listed here. So values, goals and ideologies, then concrete tasks for each individual, then carrying out the developmental task, organizational units, actors and professionals participating in the planning, role of actors, norms regulating the relations between individual participants and the organizational units. This is where you observe individual units and their interconnections, isn't it? So now the question is that what should be considered, normative planning or systematic planning? Because they seem to be contesting each other, right? So is it so? No. Remember, these two approaches are complementary approaches rather than contradictory. They need to be integrated. Where you require systematic planning, you should do systematic planning. Where you require normative planning, there it should be normative planning, and they should go hand in hand for sustainable regional development. That's very important. Then we have the type of regional planning which is on the basis of hierarchy. We say scale in geography. So remember, there is something called single level plan. Now what is this single level plan? It is a central plan. It means only one particular authority has the decision making power. For example, the national level plans made by Niti Aayog and Planning Commission erstwhile. So this was the single plan which supposed to be implemented through across the country. But what about the other one? That is multi-level planning approach. If you observe, right from village level to municipality to provincial to national, this is the scale in this plan. This is called multi-level plan, and multi-level plan is very important for the national territory, and it is divided into smaller territorial units where administration, geography, cultures, all of these are valued. And remember, there is a direct participation of people in this kind of plan, right from panchayat level to district level to state level to national level. And this is why we say multi-level planning approach in India is very important. It gives us the value system in terms of the integrated planning. And the final type of planning is based on networks. Now, what is this networks? It's the interconnection between the two. So we say it's inter-regional plan or inter-local plan. So between two regions, between two locality, and this is where it is considered explicit spatial dimension. Now, combination plans. For example, one area is having natural resources, one area is having human resources. So an integrative plan could be working out for both the areas' development together. So if you have inter-regional plan, inter-regional connectivity, highways connecting, metros connecting, so we can have an integrated plan. For example, the Delhi NCR region, if you observe Delhi NCR, this is an economic region which is an inter-regional and interstate region, right? So this kind of planning leads to the development of a conurbation in future. Urban plan leading to a far bigger regional development, economic development, social development, and all these kinds of development. So here, cooperation and support of these sectoral agencies, institutions and enterprises become very important. Otherwise, it will not function. So this is an overlap. This is based on a network, right? So here, combination approach is there. We can say interdisciplinarity is involved in this. So experts from various domains will be required for this kind of planning, and also authorities have to come to terms together, right? Then this kind of inter-regional or interlocal planning can be successful. So this is all about the various types and aspects of regional planning. So now, when we have discussed about the various types and classifications of regional planning, in the sessions to come, we'll be talking more on different other aspects of regional geography. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep watching and learning, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well.